Okay, okay. First and
It's
foremost,
clear.
thank you so much for coming on the platform. This is truly an honor. I appreciate the work that you're doing, and I definitely look
Oh,
forward
thank
to
you.
hearing more about it. Hmm.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Now, for the viewers who may not recognize you, could you let them know who you are, where you're from, and definitely what do you do?
Okay, I am Dr. Wanda J. Evans Brewer. I prefer to be called Dr. Wanda. That's how I'm known here. And I am a scholar practitioner, a grassroots activist, a philanthropist, and a Pan Africanist. I am originally from Detroit, Michigan. I moved to Chicago in '83, and so most of my adult life was in Chicago. And I'm a 35-year educator. I've taught every level: preschool, high school, grammar school, collegiate. I started in the collegiate level at '09, and it was really sort of the bottoming out of higher education that drew me to a greater platform of being a global professor. So I would say since like 2015, 2016, I decided to take my gifts, my talents, my skill sets to the continent to see uh, what I could make of in terms of life. I didn't like being overeducated and underemployed. I didn't like always, having to be a part of a strike or going out and, getting on these platforms and fighting on behalf of academics to have a living wage. And so I decided to pull myself out of that machine that I was very active and prominent in. And just, I said, if I have to give it away, I want to give it to those who will most appreciate it and need it. And everybody else will essentially have to pay.
Wow, okay, that's amazing. That's really inspiring. And you said 35 years, that's longer than a lot of
Hmm.
people been alive. You've been doing this. So I have to ask you, like, when did you develop this passion for education and Pan Africanism? Is this something that you
I,
were
you
in?
know,
Okay.
well, first of all, I'm a Detroit girl. So if people know, if they follow historically some of these chocolate cities, these predominantly black cities, Detroit was a working class city because we had auto. And so a lot of firsts I was already exposed to. First black mayor, our educators, our police force, our medics. So I came from a lot of watching, black people be intelligent and productive and involved in politics and community. And so it's kind of already was exposed to me by environment. That's one portion. The other portion is that I've always been an avid reader. Like my strength was reading and writing. And so I started reading when I was like 4. And through reading the stories, the biographies and autobiographies of various blacks experience, their journey, be it positive or negative, it shapes you. You come to, you can easily be in, 1857 or 1920, or you can travel with them on buses. You can be with them in when they're trying to move from the south to the north, or when they're breaking into industry, when they are creators, like the Harlem Renaissance, when we're creating. And so that had a different impression. But the other thing was, black folk were so narrow in terms of opportunities in professionalism. So we benefited from that. So all these black folks that went to school, and then they couldn't get a job, or they couldn't get the job that they wanted to get. They were our educators. So, yeah, we had the best of the best. Plus education was full of black men. And so I had in front of me some of the best teachers in the world. And they wanted to be there um, because that was their community. I mean, I think I was I don't know, maybe like 6, or when the Black Panther Party was still doing their breakfast program. So there's just so much that was already just kind of around me because of the politics of Detroit and the economic, the social makeup of Detroit. And then I came out of that. So that's and then the final is just coming to Chicago, which was a pretty much a racially divided city. It's always been very intense. And it's very popcorn. You know, you go to one community, it's all Latino. You go to another community, it's all Asian. Then you go over this railroad track, it's Polish. Like it's very checkerboard in itself. And then it had that huge um, it had that huge project, which was Cabrini Green. And so that was a contradiction to all of the progress of this city. Why would you have all of these people piled in this building and then, be constantly keeping them disenfranchised? So if you bring all of that together and then just my own life journey, which, Lorraine Hansberry said it best, to be young, black, and gifted. Once you find out that you actually have a gift or a talent and you're black and you go out into the world, it will tell you what the battle is quick. So that's where the Pan-Africanism comes up, is that you have to figure out pretty early on, like, do you love yourself, what you love about yourself, what you love about your people, what you love about your community, what you want to protect in that, hold dear in that. And so those experiences did that for me.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Yeah, you made some major points. Like you say, reading. A lot of people take it for granted, but it can be so empowering. The more you read, it affects, your mental, your physical, your economics. And
Hmm.
we just don't, take advantage of it, especially now in that age of information. And I can relate because I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, so I'm from the Midwest,
A
Cleveland, Detroit,
Midwesterner,
Chicago.
still
The
plants,
little
yes.
triangle. Yeah, yeah. And I can attest to that. Like, cause we got family and cousins in both cities, so we go up to Detroit, and it just was black through and through. And then, like you say, you go to Chicago, you be in one neighborhood, then you go to the next neighborhood, you be like, we ain't
Hmm.
supposed to be over here. You know what I'm
And they
saying?
let you know you weren't supposed to be over there.
Right, right. You could feel it. It be intense, and
Mhm.
then you, like you say, also you got to figure it out early on. If you're gonna love yourself or not, and that kind of take me back to, the Barbie doll test in the
Mhm.
1950s, but they do it
Mhm.
today, and it's the same result. Which doll is the ugly doll? Which doll is the
Mhm.
mean doll? Which doll is the whatever dial, then you got to face the fact that which dial look like you, and now you only
Mhm.
4 or 5 and you done figured it out. So let alone if you're 20, 30, or 40 and you feeling that type of way. So
Absolutely.
a lot to learn. So I can ask you this. My question is this: what exactly is Pan Africanism, or being a Pan African, for the viewers who
Oh,
may not know?
wow. Well, what I thought it was, or what I think it is, and what it has meant living here in Ghana are two different things. So, in general, it was meant to be sort of like the Sankofa. It's you're returning back, and with that, you're coming back with an understanding. You're trying to um, recapture what was taken and lost, but also build up, extend and strengthen the economy, build up community, learn about culture, find your space, your place and space in it, without losing self. Because I think when Edward B. Du Bois came here, he was very, very old, but he was himself. He didn't come here, even at that time and change his name. But everybody who's anybody, at some point returned, if they had the capacity, they returned back, and it became a confirmation of the beauty and the strength and all that is good in our identity. Because on the other end, we're always reminded of what we're not, or rather it's like we're always hidden figures. We're dealing with ourselves and our mates and our community as hidden figures. We got incredible inventors and doctors and lawyers and a little bit of everything, but we tend not to even know their name. They're right next door to us. They're our family members. They're community leaders. They're friends. They're former teachers, colleagues, and we really don't know them very much, except for a few. So Pan Africanism also helps with that. It gives a regular training that takes you to a space where you have to remember them. You get to know them. So that's what it is for me. But in when I came to Ghana, that all changed because except for the president, their liberating president, um, Kwame Nkrumah, in general, people have not embraced Pan Africanism. They don't understand it. They have no earthly idea why we want to be here. Why would you want to come back here? And they almost, the things that we most value, like their authentic houses, or the way that they create their own cloth, or they make anything they want, furniture, clothes, food, whatever. But it's just whatever to them, and it's so amazing to us. So um I don't know, I'm still working through what Pan African is or what it isn't, but in general, that's what it is. It's a coming back home to reclaim what was lost.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I can relate. I can relate. I was in a taxi the other day, and they ask you like, "Where you from? Why you coming back to Africa?" And the brother just pretty much told me like, "Man, America, that seemed like heaven." And I'm like, "Man, that is hell for me." And like you say, the industries, like you will see men here making furniture or making kente
Mm-hmm.
cloth. They have
Mm-hmm.
some grasp on something, where in America it's like everything we want, everything we need, we got to get it from somebody else. Even if it isn't necessarily the European, we go to the corner store, the Arab got it. We go to the liquor
Yeah.
store, we go to the hair store, we go to the nail shop. We got to get everything from everybody. Even if you say you want to be like, okay, I'm going to start a clothing line, I'm going to sell my t shirts. We don't grow cotton. We don't process cotton. We don't make the ink. We don't make the software to design the shirts. So by the time
Mm-hmm.
you really create your shirt, you got to sell it for $70 just to make a profit. But a lot of people don't
Mm-hmm.
understand it. You know what I'm saying? So it's definitely something that's very complicated. And I want to commend you for this, because not only have you returned, but you doing a lot of work. And I think Malcolm X kind of had spoke to this when he came back to Africa. He went to 14 nations, and he was saying like, a lot of the African Americans I see here in Africa, they kind of kicking their feet up. They just relaxing. You know what I'm saying? So for you to continue to do so much work and educate people and help people and empower people, I truly, truly appreciate what you're doing.
I didn't know Malcolm said that. That's interesting. I'm gonna have to look that up. But I see what he saw. Now let me make it clear. There are a lot of diasporans serving here. Okay. Where there's a if I was going to say there's a hiccup in it, is that if you come in here and you don't really have a purpose, then the stressors of the country, the stressors of serving, how you received, like the comment that you got, oh, America's heaven, you're going to hear that all day long and it'll drain you. Like you really have to have a focus. So, and then it doesn't need to be, you don't need to be an actor. So you don't need to help those people out and see them as so so pathetic and so so poor, because the truth of it is, the day before you came, they were surviving, and the day after you leave, they'll be surviving. So they're really no better than Nutbush to city limits, or any project, or if we want to look at inner city Chicago or Oakland, the stressors that where we're losing and we're having trouble, they're no better, no worse than us. So I serve in my home city in the US, I serve here. Wherever I go and they're melanated people, I serve. It's not because it's Africa, it's not because it's Ghana. If they take me out now and they drop me in Barbados, I will serve. If they send me to Mexico, I'm going to go to the area where the Afro Mexican is, and I'm going to serve. Like, my commitment is to us, because wherever we're at in the world, it doesn't matter where we at, Colombia, Jamaica, if wherever we at, we're mistreated. We're disenfranchised. We're struggling. We're mistreated. Our histories, they're mixed with beauty and trauma and trials, even to the day. So I just have a soft spot. I'm a humanitarian. I'm not against, I don't want to hurt anyone, but I'm just really, really sensitive to us.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. You made some great points. And before I forget, I want to shout out the brother that's in Angola, and I believe that's how we connected. Now, do you have something going on there right now, or are you working on something in
I
the
have
future?
not, you know what? He is very, very spiritually in tuned. And so he reached out to me about the Angola 2029 and being a chair for that. And he said, I guess he reached out to you about being a co-chair. So I find him to be serious and focused and honest. Um, but also, I think there's something special about um, the age of Aquarius, where we really are in this battle, this spiritual warfare. Like this, a lot of this stuff is not spiritual. It's not, you know, we've come to a different level. So we're gonna have to find our people. We're gonna have to find our team, and it may not necessarily be the people next to you. So when he reached out to me, um, I had to take that serious, and so that was part of him connecting us. That's why I went ahead and said hello to you, because otherwise, with the internet, to me, it's like a big giant dark alley, and it has and it has lights on. Okay, so in the alley, all this stuff goes on at night. Rats run, prostitution, somebody's getting murdered, homelessness, somebody's lost, and then the lights come on in the day, and we don't see this stuff. We didn't know. People are able to morph into something else. So I don't really play on the internet. I don't really take a lot of you know friend requests or whatever. But there was just something very beautiful and genuine in his spirit. So I decided to check him, to accept his request and then to look at that project, Angola 2029.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Big shout out to that king. Maybe he's speaking it into existence. And I'm Aquarius, so that sounds good. The age of
When is
Aquarius.
your
I want
birthday?
January 30th.
Okay, I'm February 3rd.
Okay, right. And we both in Ghana. Ain't that crazy?
Mm,
So yeah, gotta not let them opportunities pass us by. So I'm glad you're here. You had spoke on something earlier about serving our people everywhere we go. No matter where
mhm.
they at. And I wanted to mention this because now you taught Spanish for 8 years.
Spanish, yes, I did. And listen, didn't want
Oh,
to. And
right,
didn't want
right.
to. I minored in it, but I had no intention on teaching it. It was that I was at an inner city school with Latino teachers who, when they break down these schools, they'll put anything in front of a black child. So it wasn't that the teachers were unfit. In fact, they were far more qualified. Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu talked about the different approaches, some of what you need to do with boys in particular, when you're teaching them in urban settings and how they respond more to not just um, having them sit in the seat all day and responding to the fact that they kinesthetically need to be stimulated and this kind of thing. And they just didn't have the strategies to work with black children. They were brilliant educators had they been in their own countries. But on the west side of Chicago, no, they were struggling. And so that's how I end up teaching it because I could manage the students and I invested in my curriculum with them. So, but that's another point. But go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. I just wanted to hear about that a little bit because I'm studying education. My goal was to be a teacher for middle childhood. So I've been substituting like the last 3 or 4 years, but I got an opportunity to study abroad in Dominican Republic and Brazil. I spent the whole semester there, and
Hey.
yeah, yeah. So I know a little Spanish. I ain't fluent or nothing. I know a little Portuguese. But while I was there, my purpose there was just to go to school. But I used that as an opportunity to volunteer at
Okay.
orphanages. in between days when I didn't have classes. And then I found a recreation center, so I was getting hands on with helping the people. So when you said serving our people wherever because we all over the world, you know what I'm saying? So it's just amazing to me.
Every spot you wouldn't even believe.
Yeah,
We
definitely.
literally are. Yeah.
Hmm. Let me see. We're about 20 minutes in, so I can ask you this. You a published author. Um, do you
Yes.
have books available online? What's the names
I
of
do.
them?
I'm
And
on.
tell me
I'm
a little
on
bit about it.
Amazon. What do I have? I have Purple Petals Bruised Flowers. I spent some time doing work with intimate partner abuse inside the high school. I was a mentor to girls, and ultimately, I ended up working with the boys too because intimate partner abuse with teenagers is a little bit different than domestic violence because they don't have their autonomy. So even the laws around managing that's a little different. So it was about just what the experience of doing that type of work inside of a high school, and then what I thought I was going to learn and what I end up learning, and then ultimately what that outreach looked like for the young people. hmm I have another book. It's called Surface Dirty. It is it chronicles what life was like for me. I came out of a 13-year marriage and I came back into dating. And everything had changed just from the introduction of the cell phone. And so, there it was a lot that I had to learn about being out and how differently we related to one another, um, how we talked to one another, what was dating. When I came back into dating, they had Black Planet, they had speed dating, and then there was just a lot less patience. It was like, men figured it out a while ago that it's kind of like 7 to 1. The average man is like 7 women to the one man. And so then this idea that you're playing games, that you are serious but not. And so, I have a book that looks at that. It's a blend of prose, text messages, um, and just basic poetry. So that's the second one. I have I committed to locks. I always was a natural girl on some level, but I finally just did my lock journey, and I started where I just cut everything off, and I started where you have to go through the stages of the uglies. I call them the uglies because you just even when you look cute to yourself, there's one lock that just do what it want to do, or you have a section of the hair that won't lock, or you have a section that's extra. It just, and so I wrote about how do you manage your hair. What are some of the natural things that you use to keep them clean, to grow, keep your scalp healthy. It's all about just that whole experience. And then I have a book that deals with the when I came to Africa, the health fair that I put on in Lilonia, because I came here serving, and it chronicled what I described as the G3 tour. And in that tour, I had in a week, I had 5 different stops that I made. One was to a school that for the School of the Blind, or rather the deaf. They needed signage because some of the students was crossing the street and getting struck by cars. And we figured that part of, and you've been to Africa, so it's low on signage, it's low on directionals, it's low on sometimes you need more lights to tell you when to go and when to stop. And so that was one. Going out to Kamasi, and I always am taking like learning aids, any sort of academic resources, anything to deal with life skills. I take, bags and stuff. I collect that. I take it. So there, it looked at visiting one school, which is a rice harvesting community. And what they wrote me about, they just said the students was having a hard time making it through because they was constantly getting malaria. And they was getting malaria because, they it's rice harvesting. So that's a waterlogged area. Okay, so I did the research for them to see what else could you do besides dealing with the malaria, because that's you already done got sick, but prevention is better than cure. So I taught them, you can take apple cider vinegar and put it in the water and it'll kill off the larva. You can Um, you can have obviously you can make the homemade zappers. You can there was some fun stuff they was doing with tires in I think it was like Guatemala where they was cutting them and then putting things in there that made them sick. But it was the whole point of it was then I gave them a mosquito repellent soap that they bathed with, but it was to teach them that you have to hit the mosquito from every angle. The larva, the mosquito itself, the eggs, like everything, and then you'll cut it down because the U.S. used to have malaria. We used to get sick from it. We had the trouble with it, but we got rid of it 50 years ago just by not letting tires sit with water in them. Do you understand? We don't do that. Like it's stuff that it's just areas that we don't allow to have standing water because they love that, and you're definitely going to harvest them. So, and then I thought that the one thing that they didn't know was the dragonfly eats 100 of them a day. So some of them have been catching the dragonfly and being rough with it, because they also light up. And then they learn like, no, the dragonfly is actually your friend. You should be harvesting him because he will eat them up. Yes. Yeah. So those books are all on Amazon under my name, either Dr. Wanda Evans or Dr. Wanda Evans Brewer, but I'm up there.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Now that sounds like a documentary or something. Some of the stuff you're doing, it sounds so amazing and interesting. Let me see. Okay. Now I wanted to ask you have a Beyond the Surface radio?
Yeah, before I felt, listen, before there was ever Africa, there was Beyond the Surface Radio. And I ran that successfully for about, I want to say, 5 years. And I mean, to the point that was, not only was it on Spreaker, but it was on iHeart. And so I ran that like constantly with doing similar to what you do. I spoke, but I also had interviews because sometimes, people are doing things that actually keep your conversation longer. Like you can have a deeper conversation. They have way more expertise and understanding, and so they take you into other spaces. I still do Beyond the Surface Radio. I always acknowledge it because it was my baby. And so what took me from really working that show like I used to, which I still do it occasionally, is I fell in love with Africa. And Africa, kind of came as a surprise and it consumed me. So I still do the show, but when I was doing the show, we didn't have um Instagram, we didn't have Snapchat, we didn't have YouTube. You understand? It was like at the death of MySpace. So there was a period where people were thirsty for podcasts, and now we kind of gotten like we want to see everything. We want to hear you and see it. So I still do it, and I'm still proud of it. But yeah, that's my baby.
Okay, okay. So I guess I got one more question for you. Okay, now you got a TikTok. That seems like that's doing real good. What is exactly the concept behind that page, and where can people find it at if they want to follow you and keep up with what you're doing?
I'm Dr. Wanda. It's still Dr. Wanda. I'm not one of them people that do all those different names and incognito and none of that. It's me. Okay, so what's powerful about TikTok? Because I'm on Facebook and I am on YouTube. I do have a YouTube too. Okay, but what was different for TikTok is my daughter was 2 years. My teenager daughter was 2 years trying to get me to do TikTok. And I was like, I'm enough. I'm a person that I try not to um, let the online stuff consume, because you'll look back on your day and you haven't even got out your chair, you haven't stretched, you haven't like actually just sat in a person's face, put the phone down and just enjoyed them. And you live, and life is short. Like I actually want to have a cup of coffee with a friend. I want to go to a movie, and I don't want to let it take over like that. So what I liked about TikTok was I felt like it was a space I could go to. You start off, you can have a 60-minute, you can do 3 minutes, you can do 10 minutes. You understand? All of it doesn't have to be talking. Some of it can be images. You grow in that platform as you get more followers. But how this is how I actually grew that TikTok. So I was just over there just to have a chill spot where if I want to do a duet, if I like a little dance, whatever, okay? And I expressed my opinion about Pan Africanism. And I said I didn't believe that Africans really understood Pan Africanism. And I based it off of my marriage. So I have an estranged husband. He's in the UK. So anybody who knows me would tell you I have a no green card policy. I'm not going to take anybody back to America, okay? For me, it's my home and my ancestors built it. So I don't spend my time disrespecting America, all right? But it's still Babylon. It's still cruel. It still has a meanness to it that why would I take you back there? So that's one. Two, this is my retirement plan. I have a plan for myself. I have a plan for my daughter. So my daughter is my last baby. I want her high school days to be boring. I want her to have crushes and her first cry and her first date. I don't want drugs. You ain't got to be shot at. We don't have to do microaggression. You don't have to be gang jumped. All of this stuff that's in schools where teachers are getting beat up, students are getting beat up, the depression, the violence, I knew it was bad when black children started committing suicide. We didn't commit suicide coming out of slaveocracy. Where is that coming from? So I over here it's not perfect, but it's perfect in its imperfection. There's still a family system. There's still elder respect. You understand? There's still structure. So no, my baby is over here. She thriving in school. Right now, she's in boarding school. So if you listen to me talk, you can tell that lady is not going to take you to America. 95% of them want to leave the continent. So he had this perception like, yeah, he could hide it, or I don't know if he thought like he was gonna like, um make love to me so good I would take him, or the stressors of the country would be so much that I would, cry and want to go home. No, I'm not ducking bullets over here. Ain't nobody jumping me. I'm not dealing with, dope fiends, all the stuff that we deal with in these spaces that we used to not deal with. So I was over there saying, why would a person like that think? If you know I'm a Pan Africanist, I'm gonna take you back. Well, I offended so many Africans. Madam, you don't know what you're talking about. You need to, we do know what Pan African is. Well, if you know, why are you trying to go to America? What Pan Africanist would take you to America? Did Julius Nyerere say he was taking people? Did Robert Mugabe say he was taking them? You understand? Like, okay, did Tomas Sankara say he was taking them? No, you don't even, like, you couldn't know. So that opened up this huge fight. And my numbers kept growing and growing and growing and growing. And some of it was like, me defending myself. And then a friend was looking at it because I was starting to get like irritated to the point I wanted to come out of it. But I also was feeling like, no, I'm going to have this battle. And so he looked at my numbers. He was like, they helping you. And I said, what do you mean? He said, look at your numbers. So within 3 months, I went from about 500 people to like 10K. And just from that, because then I gave a response to it, because many of the Africans' response to me was, since you don't okay, then you go back to America then. Since you don't like it, go back. So I said, I'm going back because I'm from Detroit, I'm from Chicago, we ain't letting that go. So I said, I'll go back when the Lebanese and the Chinese leave, I'm leaving with them. You don't tell them to go back, you ain't kicking them out. Why are you saying all this to me? Because so, to make a long story short, those two, and then it all kind of tapered off, and it was just out there viral for a long time, and then it opened up a new conversation because I got introduced to a new set of people that are separate from Facebook, because Facebook is about family, friends, colleagues, right, and TikTok is about interests. Who comes into your circle is interest. So yeah, that's how I ended up building up my TikTok. So my TikTok is strong.
Wow. Okay, I'm gonna have to check you out on TikTok. But yeah, this has been a phenomenal conversation. I'm really glad I got a chance to, hear more about the amazing work that you're doing, and I definitely look forward to the work that you have coming in the future. This has been a great honor, and yeah, I'm gonna edit the episode up, and then when it's ready, I'll send you the link.